Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and today we have a really special treat straight from Colorado, a place I love so much, Kristen Carter. Kristen is the owner of Design for Fitness. Now, she is an exercise physiologist and a certified nutrition health coach, and she has a really wonderful story. There may be some trigger warning for some of you on here, so we're going to say this right up front. We're going to talk today about incest and how it has impacted Kristen's life and really how she has overcome all of that pain from her childhood and how she is making such a massive impact on people's lives now. Most of you guys who follow me know I used to weigh almost 300 pounds myself. I chose the route of having gastric bypass surgery back in 2010. And I today, still deal with my health, whether it be in the medical side of things or my weight. It's sometimes up and down, and it's a struggle, especially for those of us women who are business owners and entrepreneurs, and we're like juggling a million trillion balls all at once. So we are really happy to have Kristen here. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us just a little bit more about kind of who you are now and like what it is that you do?
Sure. So I am an exercise physiologist, and some people like, what's that? That means that I have a master's degree and I studied your body, your physiology, and your body's response to exercise. What happens to all your cells and all that. And along the way, I also got health behavior, and we also learned about aging and neurology and all those. So, so I carried that out and did, because of that, I was a personal trainer for a while, but then this gave me a lot more to work with. So I started working with groups of people who were trying to lose weight. Also groups of people around Pennsylvania, and taught them how to teach fitness back at their senior center.
Wow. I love that.
So and it came with a workbook, and we explained all that, and then explained all the safety, what to look for and how to keep it safe. And we had a huge turnout for that a lot of times. And I also did a little bit of research with the Philadelphia Corporation for Aging. So that was kind of fun.
That's cool.
Seeing if pedometers was going to increase people's walking, which lo and behold did.
It did, right? We love anything we can gamify, don't we? Like we're fighting against ourselves. Like, I'm going to get those steps in. I love that.
Yeah. But from my perspective, yes, that's nice. But the research says again and again, usually those kinds of things, they just fade away. So the program's 8 weeks, they put the pedometer in the drawer and nothing happens. And a lot of times in research, there isn't any follow-up either to find out what happened. So it's kind of a big mystery, and a lot of it's not very encouraging, I have to be honest. But anyway, so I was doing all that for about 30 years, and then I retired.
Retired, right? And the entrepreneur in you can't quit.
Training people and coaching them, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not done. I am not done. I have done this for such a long time. I've heard so many struggles over the years, and so many, like in your case, just health compromises and things that get in the way and all those things. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a book. So
Yeah.
I wrote a book, like just kind of not advice. I'm like, not advice. So, because I feel like advice doesn't sort of it doesn't get you where your inner conflicts really happen. It
100%.
I should be doing this. Well, guess what? I don't feel like doing that, or I have a problem doing that, or I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
So there's all that. So I wrote this book that was more of a strategy book.
Hmm.
And then got that out. And then a couple years went by, and I decided to revise it, update it a little bit, and write a workbook to go with it. So
Okay.
that, you know, giving people a theoretical strategy is one thing, but I felt the need to write a workbook so that people can, every couple of weeks or every week, they have a task, they have questions to answer. It goes in a certain order so that there's a plan. But
Yeah.
basically, each person who's reading the book and answering the questions is like filling in the blanks for themselves.
Yeah.
So,
It's
uh,
so easy for someone to spew out, like you said, that advice, like, well, eat less, move more. Well, no shit. I mean, I know that. Like, we all know.
we
Like, we
do.
all know. Tell me there's been a time that someone gave you advice that you thought, gee, I literally never thought of that before. Like, you always know, like, of course you've thought of their advice, right? Like, but what we need is that freaking plan, something we can stick to, something we can take ownership of, right? Like, that was really, and I know obviously it's happening all over the nation because down here in Oklahoma, I really felt like, there just weren't any resources for me here. Like fitness is not exactly, it's becoming a bigger thing here for sure. But when I was young and overweight in the 80s and 90s, like it for sure was not at the forefront, at least of my family or my circle's mind. So I love that you're actually giving people something actionable to do. So that's what you do now. But on this podcast, we like to rewind it back because what I have found over 120 episodes and talking to hundreds of women on this podcast and off is that most of us that are at a certain age are either on our way or have found our way full circle to the little girl that we once were in those passions and those things that were important to us and those values. So my question for you is tell me about little girl Kristen.
Okay, well, little girl Kristen was not a happy camper. um, but okay, the good part was I was brought up in a sort of sleepy suburb of Chicago in the 50s, and
Mm-hmm.
I had freedom. I could go out the door and jump on my bike and do what I wanted, or go down to the swimming pool or whatever.
Hold
But
on. You just said you were born in the 50s.
yes, ma'am.
Would you tell people your age? If you're watching on YouTube, wait, if you're on Spotify or Apple right now, switch to YouTube and come look at Kristen because tell your age.
75.
Queen, come on. Give us your, I know it's the skincare routine. That's the queen's lead moment right there. Looking like a queen. I mean, come on. Like I can't wait to get to the end of this podcast because you're going to tell us how to do this. How to look like you are not 70. You look like 40.
Okay.
Not a happy camper in the 50s. So, but setting the tone for real, the 50s back then, especially for women, it's not like we had a lot of, I don't know. Keep going.
A lot of, and okay.
Yeah, a lot of the things you have now. The things our daughters have now.
Okay, so, okay, let's see. So not a happy camper. My father was sexually abusive. He also got my brother on board with it. And I didn't have a sister or anything. I just had the brother. So there were the four of us. It went on for a really long time. And I know usually perpetrators kind of stop when you grow up a little bit, but he didn't. He kept right on going. And I didn't know that had happened until I was 41 or so. I was repressed memory.
Oh, wow.
Which is a problem for some people, I know.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you that it is a thing. Um, and they do show that a lot of times women in their 40s, they come to these things for some reason during that time of
Yeah.
their lives.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I was really a basket case for about 3 years, and I cut off any communication with my family and slowly got back into things. And I was fortunate to be able to afford and to be willing to do all kinds of therapy. So I had a wonderful psychiatrist. I was in group therapy. I had body work. I did all that. And I
Yeah.
threw myself into it. And reason being, I did not want this to go on. I did not want this affecting my kids. Even, I wasn't an abuser, but I didn't want the things that happened to me because of it, the internal things, to be blooped out onto my kids or
Yeah.
affect my husband. Um, so that was my motivation. And when you go through that, you need to find some sort of spiritual higher being. So I had been brought up in church, but I wasn't kind of following that. But I guess I felt like, God creates us to be the best we can be. And I wanted to get rid of this load so that I could find out who I really was underneath.
Wow.
So I did that. It took 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, I went to graduate school. So once I
Yeah.
got, a little more functional, and I was able to do that in Philadelphia, I was at the time. Found a great program to be in, and did that and loved it. So it was kind of like, okay, let's back up a little more.
I love it. Yeah.
When I was a kid, all right, nobody in my family had any interest in physical stuff at all. My father was just such a damaged guy, and my brother he didn't want any part of it, and my mother was kind of like a butterfly,
Yeah.
like that. But for some reason, I was a kid who I was the one hanging off the jungle gym and going on my bike and running around like a nut and doing the pogo stick and shooting baskets, and that really kept me in touch with myself, and it also gave me some notoriety at school, because you know how you get recognized for being good at sports, even if you're a female back then. I mean, I did. And so that was something that I had, as opposed to just
Yeah.
being dumped on and abused at home.
Absolutely.
So, and I just have always been a sort of kinetic person. And so when I was sitting around in my 40s going, well, what am I going to do? Because these kids are going to move out. And
Right.
I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was frankly, it was boring. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was, but it was boring. And I'm like, I need something else. So I'm like, the light bulb went off like, duh.
Yeah.
I love the exercise thing. I don't want to ever have a desk job. That just isn't. I couldn't do it. I did have a desk job for like 9 years in my 20s before I got married, and I'm like, oh man,
I can't do this. I gotta move. Yeah.
I would be like going to the bathroom every hour so I could go up and down the stairs and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, no way. And I never liked to dress up that much. So I'm like, I don't want to take a job where I have to put on pantyhose and a skirt. I just don't want to. So it all fell into place.
I love it.
I went forward from there. So that that's how it worked. So let's see. Any questions?
So many questions. So, you know, that escape you had as a child, like, do you think it was burning off that extra energy that you had? Did it make you feel like you'd accomplished something for yourself? What was it about that physical exercise as a young girl that filled something for you?
I think it made me respect my body, actually,
Mm,
and be in touch with what my body could do or not do.
yeah.
Um, and I was good at it. And so I found it satisfying. It wasn't a struggle for me to do that. It was more almost not a compulsion, but just something I just loved doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it makes a lot of sense that, you know, your body had been being used in a way that you weren't controlling, right? Or that didn't empower you at all. And
mhm,
so it would make a lot of sense that you would be able to choose a way to use your own body to empower yourself and show yourself that you had a lot of strength
mhm.
in that piece of yourself. Yeah.
Right. And it meant I had skills. I had something, there was something about me that I was capable. I was capable of
Yeah.
doing that. And that was huge. And
Yeah.
along the way, my psychiatrist actually said, that saved you big time.
Yeah,
Big,
yeah, I can only imagine how
yeah.
not only just the physical escape of leaving your home, but just being able to see what you're capable of, like you said, as a child. Um, were you always so being an active child? Were you always in a pretty optimal state of physical well-being, or did that really happen after the after your 40s, kind of after that, after the kids left?
No, I kept that up. In college, I was pretty much of a slug. I got it sort of all fell away, and I had a terrible time in college. I just didn't know how to socialize. I just didn't know
Mm,
how to be with people at all. And so I had a few friends, and I hardly ever went out, dated, did anything because I was just didn't even know how to like go to the cafeteria with somebody and have lunch. I just didn't know how to do that. So for 4 years, I did that and I studied a lot. And I
yeah.
found out I was good at that. And uh, but then once I graduated from college, I was like, you know what? I've lost track of my body. I feel like it's just sitting here. It's just, where is it? You know, like, what
Yeah.
has it been doing? And
Yeah.
so, just actually the summer after I got out, I decided to start running. And
Wow.
um, I I went to the local track. We had a college in town, so I went to their track, and um, literally I could sort of jog once around, and then I would walk once around, and then I would jog once around, and then I would walk, and then and then pretty soon I could jog the whole way for a mile, and then
Yeah.
pretty soon I could do 2 miles, and then you know, and I just kept going with that, even when my kids were growing up, and they'd go off to school, I'd go do anything,
Yeah.
and it it just really, it was a lifesaver, really. I mean, I loved it. And so,
Yeah. I can't
um,
imagine. Did your kids pick up on that bug?
they did.
Being your example?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
that's incredible to me. I can't fathom, like, my family, is also not super into physical fitness, like, truly, I mean, growing up, exercising, um, regularly was not something that was even remotely on my radar because it wasn't something my parents did. It wasn't something my cousins or my aunts or uncles or like there wasn't a lot of sports playing. There just wasn't a lot of physicality. And so it just astonishes me to know people, women my age or something like, oh yeah, I grew up because my mom ran, I run. And like it's such
Mhm.
a gift that you can give to your kids of that because starting a health journey in your 40s is tough. Like, it is tough to get yourself up to go to the gym or to be consistent with that running or that diet when it's not anywhere within your programming of childhood at all. Like, it's so foreign. So bravo to you on your kids with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's an amazing gift.
A lot of people find it boring. They really do. I mean,
yeah,
I've worked with people and tried to, we'll go for a walk together, and the person's, they're like, oh, what's
like, if you're bored on a walk, you need to like
this, like, well,
you need that walk.
Just a minute.
Yeah, if you're bored on a walk, you need the walk more than you think you need the walk.
That's right.
Like, get into your head a little bit, do a little thinking, right?
Yeah, you can do all kinds of things. You can even meditate while you're walking, if you want to do food, you can do that. And now there's a thing called forest bathing, which I find kind of hilarious in a way. It's like, well, you go for a walk in the woods.
That's what they call forest bathing?
That's forest bathing.
Oh, I just thought that was called a walk in the nature.
Well, I always thought it was a walk or or something like that.
So what do you do today in your 70s as what's your exercise routine?
Okay, so a while back, I had to have surgery on my big toe, on my right foot. And so since then, I haven't been able to run, which it just took me about 10 years to adjust. Like, I just loved it so much. But now, I walk and I hike, and it's Colorado, right? So
right. Oh, the most beautiful views.
I have a Pilates routine I have that I do on the floor, and I have weights. And here in my office, you can't see them, but I have weights and a bench and a cardio machine because sometimes it snows here. So,
yeah, occasionally.
So in the winter, I've got my boom box and that thing, and I do that, and so that, and I just kind of rotate those efforts between lifting weights and Pilates and cardio. And some days I don't do it. And holiday wise, good grief, it's, you just have to do the best you can. But
that's right. I was telling her before we jumped on here, like, it's very ironic that it's actually, we're recording this a couple of days before Thanksgiving, and there is a mountain of sugar and flour and all the baking things on my table right now. But I think that's a good ease into this. Like, I myself was very overweight growing up all through my 20s. And the title of your book is The End of Try Again. If anything, like, can make you feel like a gut punch, it's just the try again. Like, I felt like, I was actually on Fin when I was 13.
Ooh.
Yeah. My mom and I were on it together, and like, we were just, I went through this whole try again. I hate to say, my mother in her 60s is still on kind of the roller coaster of try again with her health and eating and stuff. And it was just constant up and down of crash diets and, we're going on a diet, so everybody knows mom's only buying chicken from now on. And then I remember it, as a teenager, looking forward to our treat for the week when we were on this one certain diet mom put us on in the household, which was the salad at Wendy's. When Wendy's first came out with their salad, there was this little breadstick that came with it, and I remember looking forward to that breadstick all week. We were going to get it on Sunday after church, and that was like our cheat meal for the week. And so, like, I have trauma from try again, because it was nothing but just this uneducated guessing at what was going to work for us. And so, tell us, what is the end? What is the end of try again? Like, how do we end it? What does it all mean? Walk us through, Kristen.
What does it all mean?
Yeah, what does it all mean to try again? Like, but truly, the question is, where do we start when that person has been trying again, and there's just so many things you can think about as it relates to your weight loss or nutrition or health or all that. It's just, there's too much information. Like, before, when I was young, there was no information. Now there's too much information. I don't know what's true and what's relatable for me that will be really relevant.
Okay. So let's put it this way. um, there's a quote I have. I just don't have it written down here somewhere, but there's a lovely quote about that whole thing. And it says, are you doing this journey in obedience to something, or are you embracing a different lifestyle?
Mm-hmm.
Is it obedience or is it embracing? And if you're being obedient, you're probably good for 3 or 4 months, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it. So, but if you are embracing it, which does mean um, that you do need to find out about nutrition and what's good for bodies and what isn't. And basically, in my book, and always when I talk to people, it's always Mediterranean diet. So
Yeah.
that's what you're heading towards. Okay. So it doesn't mean tomorrow you suddenly do that.
Right. Right.
Because we humans don't do that. We don't like that. We
No
don't
way.
like,
We
we don't,
even we even half our dog's food when we're switching them over to something, right? For
right.
weeks and weeks
Yeah.
until they get used to it.
Yeah,
Like,
I
exactly.
forgot it.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The other phrase is, you are not going anywhere. So you're here. Your body's here. It's going to be with you. You don't have to do this like 4-week challenge or this other thing that you're going to hate.
Yeah.
You're going to make some slow progress because you're not going anywhere. Switch over, learn as you go. Right? So you don't have to be overwhelmed in the beginning. You can just go, okay, I'm going
Yeah.
to start eating fruit for lunch.
Yeah.
Or like for instance, this may not make sense to people, but it it does make sense, which is you start out just learning to eat more slowly,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
then
That's hard for people. But I had to learn that when I had the gastric bypass surgery because I had to
oh,
chew a lot more and like the capacity was so much less. And that was really hard because we're just used to we're fast-paced society,
I
right?
do it
Yeah, just
myself. I mean, like sometimes I'm reading, the next bite, and I'm not even done chewing. Like, wait
yeah,
a minute.
yeah, yeah.
Right? So that's a big one, actually. Um, so then you are starting to pay attention to your food. And once you start paying attention more because you have a little more time, you can figure out how full you are. Now, that is a whole can of worms for some people
Yeah.
because if you already are carrying around a lot of extra fat, your metabolism and your brain are not particularly clued into your hunger signals.
Oh, 100%. That is such the truth. I I've noticed just over the years, over the past 10 or 15 years, as I've lost that massive amount of weight and it's gone up and down a little bit. I feel really blessed to still have kept most of that weight off because it's like, most people don't. But I've become so much more situationally or maybe kinesthetically aware of my body as that excess weight moved off. Is
Yeah.
that because of the size of me or is that a physiological thing?
Well, I would say it's both, but
Yeah.
physiologically, once they used back in the 50s, they used to think that excess fat just sits there, right, on your body. And now they know that it secretes hormones, it has its own circulation, it's really kind of running the show a lot of times.
Yeah, really.
And,
Wow.
and so, unfortunately, when it runs the show, it wants to stay that way. It wants to be,
Yeah.
it wants to maintain itself. So,
Right.
right? So
Wow.
that is a long road to getting letting your body regroup after you've lost some of your weight. And
Mhm.
of course, once you do that, you don't need as many calories, duh. But your metabolism really does slow down, so that you just really need a lot less food than you're used to. And
Mhm.
you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to be hungry. Oh, wait a minute, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll never see stuffing again. And that's something that your brain, over time, it needs to, calm down a little bit about all that, assuming that a lot of the extra weight is gone.
So I hear you say Mediterranean diet. There's so much controversy over, vegetarian, meat, like carnivore only, something in the middle. I have found that Mediterranean definitely works best for my overall health, not even for weight loss, but for the lupus symptoms that I experience. It is very much, I am always feeling better if I'm eating that less inflammatory, like if there's not as much caffeine, not as much sugar, all those things. So is the Mediterranean diet a pretty safe choice for most people? Or is there something for each individual as far as vegetarian is better for them or protein is better for them? Like, is there really a better fit for people?
Okay. I would say, 90% or maybe more, Mediterranean is going to be a great fit.
Really? Yeah.
It is an anti-inflammatory diet, by the way. It does help you with sugar cravings. It also helps your gut, develop the right kind of bacteria, which, by the way, if you have the right kind of bacteria in there, it actually helps you with your emotions and the choices that you make.
Wow.
So you're less likely to be, grabbing whatever, all the stuff you used to grab. It's just going to start to settle down all that stuff. Now, if you want to be a vegetarian, fine. A lot of people come to that because they do feel better on it. And some, because of ethical concerns for animals and all that stuff. And that's, you can't really argue with it. I think, if that suits you, then fine.
How do you feel about these massive carnivore, like meat only diets?
Pretty bad.
The cardiothoracic nurse in me feels really bad about the cholesterol in that, but I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of bypass surgeries on people, but I don't know.
The saturated fat thing is not optimal for that. And
right.
Speaking of, back to your gut, if there's meat in there, it tends not to be digested very quickly, and it kind of sits in there, and it can put out toxins and lead to colon cancer. Actually, they've discovered that.
Yeah, really scary, honestly. Yeah. So I mean, I hear you talking about like the hormones, the biome, all of these things. Like, and as a very curious person, like I'm constantly seeking out like, naturopathic doctors, and like there's all these like leaky gut syndrome is a big thing right now. A lot of people are talking about. So is it best to like, before someone starts on like a healthcare journey, obviously we want to consult our doctor and all those, okay, we've said our things, right? But like, we are not doctors. Okay. Listen, we just know what we've been through. But is it smart? Like, is it necessary for a person to go and get like all of those labs drawn to know kind of like where they're at on, is any of that valuable? Like these, like there's genetic testing you can get done. There's like finding out, do we need to send our poop sample in to know if we have leaky gut? Like, do we really need to start there? Is that important? Or can you really just start with something healthy and move forward?
I would say start with something healthy and then let your doctor figure out which tests he thinks you might need based on what you tell him or her, right? If you're having symptoms of things, any what's the word? Any imbalances in what you're consuming, you're more likely to be, if you're starting to eat more healthily, then you're more likely to be making up some of those in any case.
I feel like sometimes we just like, we try to, as humans, like we try to chase down all of these things and we don't give our bodies enough credit. Like, when we really heal ourselves in so many ways that like, we don't really necessarily have to go and get the 10-page $1,000 panel of vitamin deficiencies or whatever. Like if you just start doing what your body innately needs? Like it really, does it really kind of work itself out many times?
It does, depending, you may have some underlying genetic stuff going on that might be useful to find out, but in general, I would say, yeah. I also think you can start getting too focused on that.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And a little too paranoid about what you're putting in your body.
Yeah. Not to mention, I took my son is 16. He just got diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, thanks to my genes. But because of some of his weird symptoms he was getting with hives and different stuff, we sought out a naturopath, and they did one of these genetic testing, the genetic max gen or whatever testing. And unfortunately for me, I mean, we found out some good stuff, like his histamine levels were super high, and that was helpful. But what we also learned was that he has a much higher than normal tolerance to caffeine. And when he's reading this report going, see, Mom, it's fine for me to drink all these monsters. Like I have a totally higher, I know. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. And now that he's 16 and has a car, he's like, he goes and buys them. I'm like, oh God, stop it. But he found out he has a high tolerance to caffeine. I'm like, that's not really helpful for me to know for my teenager, actually.
It really isn't.
Not helpful.
It's a very good example of that. Yes.
Yeah, bad choice. Gosh, that's so funny. But okay, so basically what I hear you saying is if you don't know what to do, start with a Mediterranean diet and start eating slower. Those two things can really set you on the path, right?
That's great. I'd also like to say that, you do need to find out what that is, the Mediterranean diet. So
Right. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. How can we?
In my book, there's a bit of a cheat sheet about that.
Ooh, okay.
What is sort of on it and what isn't on it and what really isn't on it.
Okay.
And also, I think there's some resources there about where to find it. Now, I have a wonderful cookbook that's a Mediterranean cookbook, right? So you can do that, and it's just got like 1,000 recipes. I mean, literally 1,000 recipes in there that you can look at, and they're not weird. It's not, most of the ingredients you can get any old where, and there aren't like 40 of them. It's a really good. So that is another thing you can do, and just start going through and go, oh yeah, okay. Or you can go through and decide what you might like. I mean, obviously not everybody likes okra or Brussels sprouts. There's plenty in there. Plenty of ways to find out things that you do like. Okay, so that you can find that out. And
I think you find that your tastes really change. Like as you start giving your body more things that you need. I have found myself like craving the weirdest things, like as far as vegetables or fruits or things like that. It's really strange how.
Just a second, that's not weird.
It was weird to me. Like you're going, of course, we know that makes perfect sense. You're the physiologist, scientist. You're like, of course that makes sense. We don't know that. We think, but no, like the more I lean into sugar, the more I want sugar. The more I lean into vegetables, the more I want vegetables. It's just it's a scientifical fact, guys. That's how it's supposed to work.
That is yeah. Your body wants nutrients.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So tell me something. What is it that holds us back? Those of us that didn't grow up with an example like you as a mother to show us what it's like to exercise and eat right. What's the block? Like there's got to be some kind of mental block that holds us back, because I mean, like I was sitting there almost 300 pounds myself, and I wanted to want to, but I just didn't. I don't know if it was really about the weight. I wonder what was it blocking up here? Where are we blocking ourselves on that healthcare and eating and diet and weight journey? Like, is it just the number? What is it?
So what a great segue. On my website, I have a quiz. So you can go to what's my number one block for reaching my exercise and weight loss goals.
Oh, so we do have mental blocks for sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I figured it was something up here.
So yeah, I'm afraid so.
Darn it. That's the hardest organ for me to deal with, Kristen. Like we don't get along sometimes.
Right? Yeah. That's where it starts. I always tell people, if on the top, that's your brain.
Okay. I
So,
like that. So we can go to your website, which is designforfitness.com, and there is an assessment on there. We can figure out like what our biggest block is.
yeah,
Okay.
you answer the quiz and then you get a report that says, this is your tendency. Nobody's ever went or one or the other, but what
Yeah.
this is, probably what's going on some of the
Uh-huh.
time. And then
Yeah.
it shows, what this means for you and then what you can do about it. So,
Okay. What do
um,
you find are the most common couple of blocks? Are there some commonalities between the most popular blocks of that we carry?
okay, the two that come to mind is one is procrastinating.
Mm,
Um, and the thing about that is it's complex, right? But a lot of times you're procrastinating is because you're afraid, right?
yeah, for sure.
You don't know what's going to happen to your body if you do that, how you're going to feel about it, or it's just overwhelming because of the information that, you're not sure what information you need or how to go about it.
Hmm.
So if you don't have a strategy or a little bit of nutrition knowledge, you'd be like, well, that's too much. I'm
Yeah.
not.
It's just too much to deal with. Like if I have to figure out my diet and how I'm moving and when I'm sleeping and what my vitamin deficiencies are and all this, it's just so much to approach. I feel like I had a podcast earlier today with a financial expert and I was thinking like, that's the thing. All those little pieces are the things that hold us back on hiring a CPA because like we just don't know, like we're not sure if we have all our ducks in a row and we got to have all this stuff set and ready and want to do it on our own. But we need an expert. Like we really need someone who's done that, been there before, has a plan. Like who has the plan? When there's an emergency, like we're looking around, like who's got the plan? Like we need somebody to show us the way. And so I love that you're doing that for people.
Mhm.
What's normally like, let's talk more specifically now about your coaching. I can't believe our time's already going so quickly. Like you coach individuals or groups or both?
Individuals. Right.
Individuals. Okay. So someone who wants to lose weight? Is that someone who's already at a goal weight that just wants to be more healthy? Who is that perfect person for that one-on-one?
Any of the above. So
Okay.
somebody who may be already savvy about nutrition. I'm dealing with somebody right now who's very knowledgeable, but that person has impulse control issues, right? Or,
Oh, wow. Okay.
their during the week is great and the weekends are not, and so there's
Yeah.
a mindset about that you work through. So, any and all, I mean, if somebody just wants to, they've hit their weight and they're like, I'm afraid I can't maintain it. I don't know.
Mm,
I don't know what to do. Or
yeah.
I don't know how to like exercise.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I
100%.
don't know how to do that. So all of those things.
I don't know how to like exercise. I don't like it at all, like ever. I cannot bring myself to like it. Like when people say runner's high, I
Not
never got that. Never had it.
bummer.
I know, right? Like I need a plan, right? Like we have to have a plan to figure out how to do this.
Mhm.
I love it. So what does that look like then? If someone is like, okay, I'm at this place where I'm either wanting to start that journey or I'm afraid to maintain that journey, then what is actually working with you on a one-on-one basis look like?
Okay, so I have again on my website, and I'm actually in the process of redoing it a little bit,
Oh,
but
nice.
it's still up there.
Yeah, it looks
The old
great.
one's still up there. So I have like 3 different programs. One would just be for like 3 months, every other week. We
Okay.
and there would be check-ins besides that they would be working with me there. There's another one that'd be 6 months, where it's a little more intense. I can also provide handouts when I feel it's appropriate, like that kind of thing. And then there's one that can go on for longer. Um, I do that because I think at least 12 weeks is necessary. Like some people,
Yeah.
you only just want a little tweaking, but sometimes you find out there's more to it than you thought.
Right. Yeah. You start unpacking it and you're like, whoa, okay, here we are.
Right?
Yeah.
So get out
Yeah.
your notebook. We're going to start going and doing this. So, And, it can slip from one to another. So if something, you after 12 weeks, you decide you need more, then that's,
Yeah.
they keep going. So
Tell us about a client success story, someone that came to you and someone that you just kind of saw through.
Okay. Well, there's a person who, well, she was one of the toughest. I wouldn't say things are great now, but I think I've made an impact for her.
Yeah.
When we first started, I would go to her house and I would say, okay, we're going to talk about some things, but we're going to walk.
Yeah.
As we talk. And she would literally go like 2 blocks and decide she felt terrible. She had to go to the bathroom. Her back hurt.
Yeah.
Whatever came up. And so, okay, to go back. And we just kept going and going. And pretty soon we were doing a mile.
Wow.
So, and she sometimes for a while that she had to stop. There's a bench, whatever, stop. But then we'd keep going, right? And we'd keep going. And there was this sidewalk going up this sort of hill, and we got to this wall, and we started calling it the whining wall because she's
the whining wall. It's the wailing wall. Here we are.
Let's do the wailing. So now you can complain and whine all you want, but we're doing this, okay?
Yeah, I love it. Go ahead and wail. You got 2 minutes, and then we're back on the path.
Right.
That's great.
So now she goes out she belongs to a gym. She works with a trainer. I'm not in that area anymore because she's in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We're still in touch, and she works with physical therapists to make sure she's doing the right things. And she's working with a nutritionist, and she's doing all that. So
yeah, she's doing that dang thing.
In the beginning, it was like, no way am I doing. I mean,
like, was she super overweight or just like really unmotivated?
Yeah, both. Well,
yeah.
She still struggles with it because I'll tell you, her mother was a food addict, and she taught her daughter how to do that, basically.
Wow.
So we had a lot of things to work through.
Yeah, there are so many. We have so many hangups with food, don't we? It's such a core thing, like I think about, my alcoholism. Like I can choose not to, I've been sober 6.5 years. I can choose not to have alcohol. That's not a necessary thing. Like I can drink tea, I can drink water. There's lots of other things, but you can't not eat, right? You can't not eat at all. And so,
that's
I think it's so hard, especially when you didn't grow up with an example. The example you grew up with was an addict of food versus, someone who was trying to nourish you through food. And I know it's so easy. I've said it a million times myself. Like, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. But really rewiring that brain, you're like, you don't even know what that lifestyle looks like. How could you possibly know what to change? Like, you got to have some help to get you there, right?
That's right.
So do you still, now that you're in Colorado, do you still work in person with people in your local area, or is everything pretty much online?
It's online, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. So you can work with, that means you can work with anybody though.
It does. That's what that means.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. That's great. That's so great. What is the first thing that you normally, that you have to overcome with the mindset on most of your clients?
Ooh, it kind of depends on the person, but what I go for is why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
And really find out what the reason is. And if it's, okay, sometimes it's, I'm going to be in a wedding and I
gotta fit in the dress,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I like to get right into some introspection right up front, where people are and what they've been thinking. Is it just something that somebody said, well, you need to lose weight, or why don't you get off your duff once in a while, or whatever?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just eat less, move more. It's so easy. You can do it. Go. You're fine.
We talked about this, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
find out what's going on there, and then see if we can tweak it or get a little deeper with it. And
I
because
love that.
in the moment, like you, as you say, all day long, you've got choices to make, like
Yeah.
all friggin' day. So if
So many
you have that why thing, like this is what's important to me, this is what I
Yes.
value about me,
Yeah.
and this is what I value in general, then you can call on that in the heat of the moment of a decision that's, somebody's trying to give you a hot dog or whatever.
Right. Kristen, are you sure you're not a therapist? Because I feel like we should just like rename it to weight loss therapist or like health therapist, because like that is truly though, that is one of the most powerful questions I think you can ask someone is, and why is that important to you? Because the woman thinks she's coming to you because she wants to fit in the wedding dress. But if you asked, and why is that important to you? And she answered, and then you said, and why is that important to you? And she answered, and he said, and why is that important to you? Usually, if you can ask it like 3 times, you can tunnel down to the real reason fitting in that dress is important. And then you get to the what's going on up here, right? Got him. Yeah, got him. Gotcha.
People haven't thought about it. They really haven't until you ask the questions.
Right. You're like,
why I wanted to write the workbook. So I'm just asking.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
That's so good. Wow. Kristen, is there anything else that you want to make sure that you say before we get off this? What does the world need to know? What wisdom can you impart to us?
Okay. 2 things.
I love it.
One is to find the why. We just talked about that. If you wanted to pick one thing to do, get on the war against junk food. Learn about what it is, what's the worst ones, get it out of your life, and see if you can get it out of other people's lives too. But you start with yourself. If you put that in your body, your gut does not recognize it.
Yeah, because you mean no. Can you further define for us? Is that prepackaged stuff? What do you mean by junk food?
Okay, so there's processed foods, those things with emulsifiers, altered proteins, dyes, lots of salt, fat, and sugar. Of course, Cheetos come to mind, and
yeah. If it is not a naturally occurring color in nature, maybe don't put it in your mouth. I see those Takis, those little rolled corn chips. They're called Takis. My little niece loves them, and they are literally blue. They are the color of that blue sign. They are so blue. I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know. But yeah, that came, you said you were growing up in the 50s. And is that when manufacturing kind of started?
I think it came they really got into it in the 70s. And behold, that is when the obesity epidemic also started taking off. And they say, well, it's genetic, it's this, it's that, but it just totally follows it. If you watch the curves going up, they're exactly the same.
100%. Genetics, societal, maybe a bit more genetic. I mean, it's genetic now, but
all those
because of society. 100%.
Seriously.
Yeah. They've made it really hard for, young moms and people that are like the convenience of things seems so convenient at the time. But, looking back over my years of obesity and struggle with my health, my son is 16 and I believe it was at his 11-year-old child check. They tested him for type 2 diabetes. That's alarming to me that is a standard test now for our children. So I totally agree. Getting that prepackaged stuff out of your life is of utmost importance. 100%. Sugar. Yeah. Sugar. Which imagine my shock when I learned that sugar is not even from sugar. It's from beets. Right? Is that what we're like the granulated white sugar?
Lots of different places.
Yeah. Like we don't even know what we're putting in our bodies anymore. Be aware. Know what you're putting in your body 100%. If you are looking to embark on a healthcare journey and you don't know really what to do and you need a plan, head over to Kristen's website. It's designforfitness.com. And let me see, what is that? designforfitness.com/your-assessment. That's where you can go online and take that assessment and see, like, where am I really being held back? Because until we're asked them questions, sometimes it's really hard to know what is motivating us and keeping us in those unhealthy loops. So, Kristen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story so vulnerably. I appreciate your candor and your honesty. If you're out there and you have experienced any of the things that Kristen has experienced and you need someone to talk to and you want to get on that healthcare journey, head over to her website and fill out the form, get in contact. She's obviously a wealth of information and knowledge, and bravo, by the way, for like this whole vibe and being in your 70s. Like, you are goals, ma'am. You are absolute goals. You are a total queen leader. Congratulations on your beautiful, beautiful life. I'm really I'm just proud of you as a fellow human. Like, you've come so far and you're doing such great work. It's truly queen leadership work. Like, we need women like you in our lives to uplift us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being my guest. And thank you for being a queen that leads.
The Queen's Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on her socials at @TheRealAmySingleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at The Real Amy Singleton.